When I was a courier for my father's house, I'd cross Cathedral Square 100 times in a day. On the fairest days, that square would be filled to bursting with Oriath's highborn, come to bask in the sun and each other's glowing nobility. It was a pretty sight, depending on where you stood.
Avarius, Innocence. I'm not sure there's a great deal of difference. Around the time I heard the beast's mortal scream, the newly appointed High Templar Avarius went through something of a revelation. The manner in which he speaks and acts now would indicate that he believes, without doubt, that he is some earthly embodiment of God. That's faith for you. It'll reduce grown men to the madness of infancy.
I'm not up to that just yet.
If it weren't for Lani, I'd have cut that bitch's throat the moment I met her. But Violenta seems to know her medicine, so she gets to live. Until Lani is better. Then Violenta will answer for her crimes against us. Well, I know his other names. The Black Spirit, the Cannibal King, the Ravenous One. He was all of those things before Tsukuhama slashed out his eyes, before Valakor drowned him in the sea, before Hinekora whipped him and condemned him to immortal darkness. Kitava has learned from the suffering inflicted upon him, learned what cruelty is from his own flesh and blood, learned what it means to be a slave. Now he hungers for freedom. Not merely for himself, for all of us who have suffered under whip and shackle. Kitava is the tormented one, destined to rise up from the darkness and banish cruelty from this world. And we, his children, rise with him.
I'd be dead right now if not for Violenta. I just hope I live long enough to repay her. And how will I do that? By talking Utula out of his inclination to slice Violenta's throat open. As far as I'm concerned, our pasts are as broken as our chains.
I gave Piety everything. Devoted my life to her work. What did that thankless bitch do for me in return? Left me here to polish her beakers while she pursued glory in Rayclast. Oh. You killed her, did you? Likely as not, you'd have killed me too had I been there. In that case, perhaps we both got exactly what we deserved.
That would only slow me down.
Old Red Eyes. He's been quiet for a long time. Just like Kitava and Tsukohama. All of the old gods. Now Innocence has woken up, and with him, power like I've never seen the Templar wield before. It's all right though. We slaves, we've got our own god looking out for us now. I can see him in the eyes of my brothers and sisters, smell him in the blood we've spilled, hear his call in the screams of the fallen. I don't rightly know where the gods have been or what's brought them crawling back, nor do I really care. All I need to know, my friend, is that we're not alone anymore.
Piety and I have devoted ourselves to the betterment of the human condition. As for our methods, Piety had a saying that summed it up nicely. Would you consider the feelings of the stones when constructing a glorious cathedral in the name of God? Casticus supplied us with slaves, mostly Cardui, and I put them to good use. In fact, I believe their participation in my experiments elevated them from squalor to splendor. Our subjects were able to give their otherwise meaningless lives to something greater than themselves. Isn't that what we all want in the end?
Beauty will grow from your remains.
With Dominus away in Rayclast, someone had to keep the wheels of oppression turning. Avarius was only too happy to take the job. It had plenty of practice already, of course. It was Avarius who led some of the largest and most crippling raids upon the Ngāmakanui and the Ngākura Makoi. It was on his orders that men, women and children were shackled and shipped like cattle to Theopolis. And it was Avarius who spent 5,000 Karui lives building his Templar courts and his Chamber of Innocence. Who had wives and daughters scrub their husbands' and fathers' blood from the stones so as to preserve their purity. When you meet Avarius, feel free to exact a little extra vengeance in the name of Karui's suffering.
Must be cleansed of impurity. Burn! Kneel! Burn! Emperor! Eternal. I am Innocence!
Innocence! You, and only you, I shall save. I am Sin, the Forgotten One. Would that humanity could forget all of my kind. Perhaps with your help, that might still come to pass. For now, the blinding light has been dimmed, and darkness floods in to fill the void. The desperate and depraved set a feast for their lord incumbent, Kitava, the Ravenous One. Should Kitava accept their invitation, there is but one thin sliver of hope for us all. My brother's sign of purity. Look to it in the choking passages of Templar Avarius. It shall be your torch when night falls at last. Deep in the Templar's ossuary, in the company of the dead, there lies the sign of purity. Innocence bled himself for the creation of that cruel and desperate weapon. Tempered in his own ruby ichor, it was forged to be a transcendent tool of punishment and purification. The sign is a living agent of righteousness, or at least the dubious kind of righteousness that my brother subscribes to. Innocence found in the first High Templar a most faithful servant, and gifted the sign to him so that it might be used in times of great need. The great need of Innocence believers, that is. Humanity's general well-being has never been of particular concern to my brother. Though I am a god, I have not forgotten my humanity. I care for that which I once was. Kitava remembers nothing and cares for nothing but his own hunger and greed. He is an endless pit of gnashing teeth and churning guts. While other gods rise on the mainland and fight for the meager scraps of what was, Kitava has the most fecund and formidable civilization of his age at his disposal. He can feed when he likes, and he grows ever stronger with each morsel. All of Oriath shall soon belong to Kitava, and if that happens, he will rise beyond even our reach. He lives, after a fashion. That pretentious little vessel of his served only to encourage his divine follies. I have procured him a more sensible host, one that should contain his excesses and temper that fragile ego of his. Hear this, brother. From mind of lead to heart of gold, your soul shall be bound, your wrath shall grow cold. I am Sin, the Forgotten One. Would that humanity could forget all of my kind. Perhaps with your help, that might still come to pass. For now, the blinding light has been dimmed, and darkness floods in to fill the void. The desperate and depraved set a feast for their lord incumbent, Kitava, the Ravenous One.
You deserve recognition for what you have done. You've freed us from Templar oppression. Yet I fear you may have defeated the lesser of two evils. Still, take something. You'll be needing it in the dark times to come. Once Kitava has gobbled up every scrap of Oriathan flesh, sucked every Oriathan bone dry of marrow, he'll turn his endless hunger to Namakanui and the whole Karui archipelago. As you know, the Karui will fight, and they'll fight hard, but they're going to need all the help they can get, and I know of 3 treasures that might just make the difference. They were taken when the Templar raided Namakanui: a whip woven of Hinekora's hair, a tooth that Tukohama ripped from his own mouth, a fishhook that was once the jawbone of Valakor. Together, they're known as Kitava's torments, and lie within the reliquary that borders Oriath Square. I saw them with my own eyes when delivering messages to the scholars there. Please, Go to the reliquary and claim those treasures before Kitava's children do. For freedom.
You've destroyed him, and yet I hear the voice of Innocence, begging for our forgiveness, asking for our help. You and I heard him the moment the High Templar fell, whispering inside my damn skull, his heart beating within my chest. Innocence protects us now, holds fast the door against the murderous tide that rushes to meet us. He wants you to pass through that door, to bring order to the chaos beyond. I don't understand any of this. Moments ago I was just a soldier obeying his High Templar, Bannon the Nobody. Now, my God lays inside my head, telling me to let you through that door and to make my way to Overseer's Tower, if it still stands. It does? All right. I don't know what's waiting for you out there, but should you survive it, I'll see you at Overseer's Tower.